Hi, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Mike. I'm from ThoughtWorks. We have been in business for 25 years now. We are 6,000 people in 14 countries. I often tell people we are the biggest tech company you've never heard of. So what do we actually do, right? So we've got a history of bringing high technology, leading edge tech to our clients. We work with name brands to allow them to take on new tech and new techniques. For a long time, that was agile software development. Two of the signatories of the Agile Manifesto work for ThoughtWorks. And so we've got this history of bringing high tech to the enterprise. And in some cases, we bring tools and techniques, and in some cases, we help to invent those. So we literally wrote the book on continuous delivery. We've been a big part of the DevOps movement, of course, cloud and all that. But we're talking about digital transformation today, so why am I talking about tech? And it's because increasingly we've found that just doing technology well is not enough. Our clients are getting stuck, even though they can do technology well, and we've needed to help them with the bigger picture, which is around digital transformation. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Also, it seems traditional for everyone who's a presenter to mention that they're an author, and I'm extremely relieved to let you know that I finally finished the copy edits on a new book with two ThoughtWorks colleagues. That's going to be out in a couple of months, so do look for that. It's called Digital Transformation Game Plan, which is hopefully why I'm a little bit qualified to talk about this stuff. Okay, so why are we here? Digital transformation is hard. Like, everybody has shown up to this room because it's a difficult problem that we're all grappling with. And even if an organization has kind of a board level mandate and a whole bunch of budget around transforming, we still find that organizations stumble and hit roadblocks when they're trying to transform. So here's a few reasons. It's more than just agile IT. So we have a lot of clients who are implementing agile within their IT department. They're doing some Scrum, they've got some coaches, they're doing some iterations and stuff like that. But they're really not able to do as much as they need to with that. They're better able to deliver technology, but then they run into kind of the rest of the organization, which is kind of bureaucratic and slow and lots of red tape. And so they can't take advantage of this new ability to deliver quickly. The second problem that we see is it's easy to get distracted by hype, and especially other people's stories. So there's a whole bunch of organizations that we know of who are busily implementing the Spotify model for IT. Now, there's a couple of problems with that. First of all, the model's old, and secondly, it's not actually Spotify's model anymore. It was the Spotify model when they wrote about it at the time, but they've moved on as an organization. Spotify's model isn't a bad model, but it was for them. It's a model that was designed for the Spotify organization and their history and their capabilities and their culture, and that's why it was working for them. So within digital transformation, we see a lot of people trying to pick up somebody else's solution, and that doesn't work very well. And next, we think you need the right sequencing and choreography to be successful. This stuff is difficult. Things that you're doing during a digital transformation, they relate to each other, and there's complex relationships. And I use choreography deliberately because it's kind of like a dance, trying to get the various pieces of an organization to move better together. So we've been working to try to figure out what does good look like. If you look at the best organizations in the world who are delivering digital really well, they've got a really good digital mindset, what does that look like? Well, I think it's pretty obvious to talk about customers and technology. And when talking about customer obsession, we talk about providing value for your customers. And that's very different than getting value from your customers. Lots of organizations are really, they think about customers as a revenue stream. They think less about creating value for the customer. We work with a bank that surveyed its customers, and they said to us that 70% of their customers wanted a mortgage. I looked it up. The word mortgage is actually Old French. It's two words, mortgage, which literally means death pledge. I'm not sure how many of us actually really want a death pledge. What do we want? We want to live in a nice home. right? And if as a bank, you can start to be a home partner to me rather than somebody who's giving me a particular number and a rate on a mortgage, then you're going to be able to create lots more value for me and a lot more stickiness. We talk about outcome orientation. So the best organizations are all aligned around business outcomes rather than kind of traditional organizational structures. They're responsive to market shifts, which means they can get smaller workloads through their process and into production and creating value for them. The best organizations have a test and learn culture. It's kind of the opposite of the hippo decision-making model, the highest paid person's opinion that you heard about in the previous talk. They're able to use information assets strategically. So being able to go from data to insights and use those insights across the organization, avoiding having kind of data siloed and inaccessible. Structures and governance under a digital mindset is the ability to be able to use governance as a set of guardrails rather than as a set of checkpoints. So things to keep teams and the organization on track rather than something that creates friction and slows you down. And then finally is the mindset of technology at the core. We sometimes talk about technology to the boardroom, and it's increasingly important for everybody within a company, even all the way up to the CEO, to really understand a bit more about tech. In the book that we've written, there's an entire chapter on technology as it relates to digital transformation. And we think like every exec and every decision maker should read at least that one chapter on really understanding the impact of some of these technology changes. So if these are the characteristics of a digital mindset, how do you get there? We've looked at this and think there are 5 building blocks within this. So the first one is, okay, it's still there, is the frictionless operating model. And so that's the ability to align all of your organizational structures around value creation and value delivery. There's platform strategy, and that's having technology and architecture that actually allows you to move and evolve. So when the data or your business strategy says that you need to move, you actually can. Experience design and product capability is all about having small teams who are aligned to customer value and customer needs and able to get small products into production for those customers. A couple of years ago, some folks in our retail team wrote a bit of a clickbait article that said, loyalty is dead. And their point was that these days, people are much less loyal to brands. They're all about their customer experience. You know, if you're getting a good experience from a particular provider, you're more likely to stick with them. And so customer experience is kind of a new battleground. Intelligence-driven decision-making, I talked a little bit about that on the previous slide, but one of the key points in this building block is being able to make sure that data is not locked away in silos and that teams can appropriately access the data they need to be able to create value for customers. And then finally, the final building block is engineering culture and delivery mindset, and that's being able to consider technology and engineering as a first-class career path in an organization, so that techies don't feel like they have to become a manager in order to be able to progress in their career. And that's kind of around where you might see agile IT adoption come in. And the talk here is about digital fluency, which is a component of this stuff. This is built on something called the Agile Fluency Model by Diana Larson and James Shaw. And there are a couple of Agile coaches and consultants who've been working to help teams adopt Agile within an organization. And their observation is that there's a major difference between what somebody can do kind of in a classroom setting when they're trying to learn something and something that somebody does day to day. And really the difference there is this fluent proficiency in a new technique or a concept. And so what we did was we took the Agile Fluency model and expanded that to be about how an entire organization can adopt digital. So with Fluency, I like to use the analogy of language fluency. So if you were going to Paris for the weekend, you might just need tourist-level French, or you might need no French at all and just a Google app on your phone. If you were going to go live in Paris, you probably want conversational French. And if you were going to go work in Paris, you might need professional-level French. In particular, if I'm just going to Paris for the weekend, I shouldn't feel bad about only having tourist-level French. I might, it might be actually kind of a waste of time for me to learn more French than that if I'm not going to be using it. And that's the major difference here in this model of digital fluency. It's in contrast to a lot of the maturity models that kind of have this built-in implication that if you're not at level 5 maturity across the board, then you're doing the wrong thing and you should try harder and you should feel bad. So in practice, how do we do this? So first of all, we help folks understand the model and its implications. There's a lot of kind of moving pieces under the cover and interrelationships between the building blocks. Secondly, we help folks determine where they aspire to be as a business. So this is an aspirational model first. This is looking at your business strategy, your competitive landscape, and using that to determine the level of digital fluency that you aspire to as an organization in order to achieve your goals. Then once you've figured out your aspiration, you can start to look a little bit more at reality and figure out where are we today and what kind of a roadmap do we need to move forwards. Here's an example fluency model. And so you've got the building blocks from left to right and these kind of phases of fluency from top to bottom. This is an example from a financial client who they're a trusted brand, they've been around for years, but what they're seeing is that their customers are starting to, their average age is decreasing, they're getting younger, those folks are more digitally savvy, and so they're expecting more of a kind of a digital engagement model with this company, expecting an app and an ability to connect more easily. So this company really felt that they needed a high level of fluency in experience design and product capability. They're also sitting on piles of data about their customers, and they want to move from a kind of a reactive response to their customers to a proactive approach where they can use the data to help figure out what it is that they might be able to provide a client, kind of proactively. And so for those two building blocks, they've got pretty high fluency aspirations. And the other building blocks here, they're more in support. Those are the things you kind of have to do in order to achieve that fluency there. If we dig a little bit deeper, this is what's underneath a particular building block here, platform strategy. Bit of an eye chart. The point isn't to read the whole thing, but to give you an idea that the model here has kind of a description of how it will feel for you if you're achieving a particular level of fluency, as well as the kind of outcomes that you might get from that fluency. In particular, improving your fluency is going to require some investment, so you only want to do that if you're actually going to get a return on that investment. We like to say that this is helping discover the authentic digital you. It's not a cookie cutter approach. This is going to be different for each organization. And so here's an example fluency investment map. So this is the kind of stuff that you might do to improve your fluency on each of these building blocks. And I just want to call out that there's a couple of pitfalls here, right? So I see lots of people taking pictures. This is just an example. So these are sensible default investments, but they might be different for you. One big problem is how many companies out there say they are doing DevOps, right? I know a lot of organizations who think they're doing DevOps, and all they've done is create a DevOps team and create yet another silo and not actually solve the problem of developers and operations folk actually liking each other and collaborating better. So the problem, kind of at a leadership level when it comes to digital transformation is that you might think you're doing a particular thing. You might think you're checking the box, but when you actually look under the covers, you're not achieving, the important gain in fluency in that building block. And then what we do is we help organizations create something we call a roadmap to fluency. Again, this is sort of a set of typical investments that you might do. it's not linear, right? That's another great thing about the fluency model, is that you can develop levels of fluency in those building blocks in a non-linear fashion. It doesn't have to all be a straight line. And in addition, you don't have to, you will not develop fluency across the organization at the same level. So there might be pockets of greater fluency within an organization, and that's okay too. We don't think you need to get to level 5 and strengthening fluency on everything. But we do think that every organization should probably try to get to that focusing level in all of those building blocks. So, if you're interested in this stuff, I would urge you to do 3 things. First of all, think about where you aspire to be as a business. It's aspirational first, it's measurement second. Reflect deeply and honestly on your current state. Try to avoid that whole problem of thinking you're doing DevOps when you actually might not be. And then start creating a roadmap to your organization's authentic digital self. This is different for every organization. Your aspirations are different, and your roadmap to get there will be different. Thank you, and good luck.